Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. I'd like to thank you all for being here today. I'd like to welcome some special guests that have joined us that are in the audience today. We have the Adjunct General of New York State, Major General Patrick A. Murphy. To my left, Oneida County Executive Anthony Pacenti. City of Oneida Mayor Max Smith. Herkimer County Legislator John Brzezinski. Village of Herkimer Mayor Mark Ainsworth. Village of Fort Plain Mayor Guy Barton. Village of Ilion Mayor John Stevens. City of Little Falls Mayor Robert Peters. City of Utica Mayor Rob Palmieri. Thanks for the cannolis, man.
Yeah. We sampled them already.
Town of German Flats Supervisor Frank Spotto. Town of Herkimer Supervisor Dominic Frank. And Town of New Hartford Supervisor Pat Tazinski. And to all of our other distinguished local elected officials who have joined us today, thank you for coming. I would also like to welcome our governor back. He has been here a comforting and supportive partner throughout this ordeal to our community, and thanks to him for his commitment. Over the last few weeks, our communities have been shaken by devastating floods. To many of us, it feels like that our lives were washed away. Thankfully, through all of this, Governor Cuomo has been dedicated to ensuring that we are not left to fend for ourselves. Governor Cuomo arrived to the Mohawk Valley on the first day of the flooding and has been here ever since, leading the recovery and relief efforts. His commitment to the residents in Herkimer shows us that the state government was here to help and will never let us down. The state has been a true partner to our county during these difficult times, delivering much needed resources in order for us to get back to our day-to-day lives. Despite the horrific series of floods and storms, we will rebuild the Mohawk Valley with the state's help better and stronger than it was before. It gives me great honor to introduce Mrs. Marianne Cristiano, who was one of the flood victims, who is going to make our introduction today.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone, and thank you for inviting me to speak. My family and I have lived in our home for 47 years. This is where we created our memories and raised a family. And while there has been bad weather before, up until 3 weeks ago, we had never experienced anything like the flood damage that completely uprooted our home. My house was flooded, my garage swept away, and my yard was filled with mud and literally tons of stones. So many that we couldn't get out of the house. We live in a community where neighbors always help their neighbors. Now I needed help. Almost as soon as the water stopped flowing, Governor Cuomo was at my door. I couldn't believe it at first, but it was him, and he had brought all the resources New York State had to offer with him. First thing he did was ask how my family and I were doing, and if there was anything we needed. You could tell he genuinely wanted to help. Next thing I knew, State DOT were moving tons of stones from the road so passage could be available. It was an unbelievable response. That day, the governor came by, he said something that caught my ear. When he was leaving, he said, "I will be back." I remember thinking, there's no way he's coming back to He's too busy. He has the entire state to think about. Why would he think about the village of Herkimer? But you know what? He meant it. A few days later, he was back at my house checking on the progress. And he came back today because even though the federal government turned us down and left us with nothing, and he could have just walked away, Governor Cuomo came through for us in a big way. He kept his promise to me, to my family, and to our community. While the last few weeks have been trying, they have made me proud to be a New Yorker. Proud of the neighbors and leaders who came through for us in our time of need. All I can say is thank you. They are two simple words, but we mean them. Thank you. It is now my honor and privilege to introduce our friend and Governor, Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mary Ann Cristiano. Isn't she great? Let's give her another round of applause. It's great to be back with so many friends and so many outstanding elected officials, first responders. But first and foremost, let's start with the chairman of the Herkimer County Legislature, who's done a really amazing job. I've seen him in action, and he was a superhero. Jim Bono, congratulations. Thank you for everything you've done. You'll hear from them in a moment, but I want to acknowledge my colleagues from Albany who worked very hard to help us complete this package that we're going to announce today. And we have Senator Seward who's with us, and we have Senator Griffo. Let's give them a round of applause, and thank you for being here. We have Assemblyman Angelo Santa Barbara, Assemblyman Anthony Brandisi, and Assemblyman Bill McGee. Pleasure to be with you. Oneida County Executive Anthony Pacenti. Thank you, Anthony, for a job well done. Pleasure to be with you. And Mayor Max Smith. Thank you very much. Thank you for everything you did, Mayor. Pleasure to be with you. Let's give him a round of applause. And Howard Glazer, who is at the end of the table to my left, who is the State Director of Operations, who runs all the state disaster preparedness, along with General Murphy. They've had a busy couple of years, and let's give them a round of applause. Most of all, I want to applaud the first responders here in Herkimer and the surrounding towns and the surrounding counties. They came together. They did an extraordinary, extraordinary job. And you have to remember, you have first responders who are from the community, who on one side of their brain, they're thinking about their family and their home that may be in trouble. The other side of their brain says, we're public servants and we're here to serve the community, and they go out there and they serve the community while their own families and their own homes may be in danger. And they did a really outstanding job, and they were an inspiration to all of us. Some of them are here today. Let's give them a round of applause. Well, we know what the bad news is. Bad news is our community was hit with a disaster with very little warning. Flood waters, as you heard from Mary Ann, that people hadn't seen in decades and decades. I talked to some homeowners who were in their home 30, 40, 50 years. They had never seen anything like it. And it came out of the blue. And it came out of the blue with a ferocious strength that really devastated people's lives immediately. We have about 500 people whose homes have been lost or have been significantly damaged. 500 people almost in the blink of an eye. That's the bad news. The bad news is also that there has been a pattern of these types of things of late. Global warming tends to be a political topic, but it's inarguable that we've been seeing extreme weather conditions here in the state over the past 2 years. Hurricane Irene, Hurricane Lee, Hurricane Sandy, all over the state. We've had a significant amount of damage. And the bad news is that we're grateful that the federal government through FEMA has come in and has reimbursed the local governments, and that's important. But the federal government has concluded through its agency FEMA that individual assistance is not qualified in the state of New York. So homeowners, business owners, farm owners are not getting federal assistance. And that is disappointing news. We advocated on behalf of the community, and we would have hoped that the federal government would have given us a different outcome. That's the bad news. What's the good news? Good news is that we are New Yorkers. That's the good news. And we have first responders like no other. We have a spirit of community like no other. They say we're tough as New Yorkers. Yeah, we're tough. But we're also kind, and we're also generous, and we're also supportive, and we're also loving. And you've never seen a people come together like New Yorkers in terms of when there's a crisis. And you've never seen neighbor help neighbor and citizen help citizen and come out of their own homes and do whatever they have to do, one for the other. I brought my two daughters with me today, Cara and Michaela. I have a third one who's not with us today. She's somewhere. She's somewhere. She better be where she says she is. But and we were chatting on the way up about what happened, and I said, you know, community is much like family. And when one person has a problem, everyone has a problem. And when one person has a problem, the other people come to the assistance of that person who has a problem. And whether it's family, or whether it's community, or whether it's a state or a town, it's the same concept. And I've seen this all across the state. When one person has a problem, everyone is there, one for the other. And that's what today is all about. And I want the state government to lead the way. So what we're going to do is this. While the federal government has said the individual aid doesn't qualify, I said from day one, when I was in the home of Ms. Cristiano, I said, we, your neighbors, we're going to be here. And I know it looks bleak now, but we're going to be here for you tomorrow and the day after and the day after, and we're going to do what we have to do to help you, because that's what we're about and that's what we believe. And I said, if the federal government for some reason doesn't see fit to help, well, the state government will. And the state government will. We said we will, and we will. The state is going to fund what the federal government should have funded, in my opinion, and the state is going to fund individual assistance to the homeowners that were damaged and who lost their homes. We're going to fund at the same guidelines that the federal government would have funded at for people who had damaged homes. If you lost your home and you want a buyout from your home, some people decide that they want a buyout and they don't want to go back to that home because maybe it's flooded a number of times, the state will pay 100% of the market value of that house before the flood, before the damage was done. We'll offer assistance to small business owners, to farm owners for losses to businesses and to farms. And then coincidentally, we have a conference tomorrow in Albany for communities that were hurt under Storm Irene and Storm Lee and Hurricane Sandy. And they're all coming to Albany tomorrow to a conference, and they're going to be receiving funding from the state to help them rebuild. This happened after, literally, the invitations went out for the conference, but you're in a similar situation, so we want to invite you to the conference, and we're going to provide counties with an additional $1 million per county, at least, to help counties plan on how to make this situation a positive at the end of the day. When you add it all together, Herkimer is going to receive about $4 million in assistance. Madison County will receive about $3 million in assistance. Montgomery, $4 million. Oneida, $3 million. Niagara County, $2 million, for a total of about $16 million in state aid. It's a lot of money, but it's your neighbors saying, we're here to help you. And And my last point is this, and we spoke about this on the way up also. Sometimes you say to yourself, why me? Why did God let this happen to me? Why did this have to happen to me? Why did this flood come almost biblical proportions out of nowhere? Cristianos were at home. 1 hour later, their home was filled with rubble. 70 truckloads of stone was taken out of the yard of the Cristianos. You know, why me? Sometimes we don't have the answers. Why are we given certain hardships? Why are we given certain challenges? But I believe this. I believe in every challenge there is an opportunity. And in every storm, there's always a silver lining if you look for it hard enough. And yes, we've had a hardship. And yes, people have had a long 2 weeks and people have suffered. But I believe we can turn this into something good. And I believe that this community is stronger, having gone through what they went through and come together, and the bonds of this fabric of this community are stronger. I believe we're not just going to rebuild what was before, but we're going to build it back better than it ever was before. And that's what this funding is an opportunity to do. So we're going to take this negative and we're going to make it a positive. The Cristianos are going to have a new garage out of this. They're going to have a new front lawn out of this. It's already planted. It's going to look great. That bump is now gone that was in the yard. Remember that bump? It's all smooth now in the yard. So see, there can be a silver lining. I believe the silver lining that is going to shine on the Cristiano home is going to shine on hundreds of homes in this community. And we're going to be stronger and the better for it. And it's my pleasure and honor on behalf of the state of New York to be part of it. So thank you, and thank you for having us. And with that, I want you to know I spoke to the state legislative leaders. The leader of the state Senate is Senator Dean Skelos. I spoke with him this morning. Leader of the Assembly is Assemblyman Sheldon Silver. I spoke with him. Their senators and assemblymen are here, so they are fully on board and cooperative and helpful in getting this done. This is a little fast for the state government to move. The legislature is not in session, but where there's a will, there's a way, and I want to thank the Senate and the Assembly very much for their cooperation. And with that, let me turn it over to your senator, who's done an outstanding job, a good friend of mine, Senator Seward. Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Governor, and all of you. And Governor, it's great to be with you once again. This is your 4th visit to Herkimer County since the flood incident at the end of June, early July. And you have been a steadfast presence here in the Mohawk Valley since this has occurred. And on behalf of all of the residents in this region, we want to say we are very grateful for your personal attention to our needs.
Thank you very much.
And I'd also once again like to acknowledge my colleagues in the Senate who are with us today. We work together on behalf of the residents of the Mohawk Valley. First of all, my colleague, Senator Joe Griffo. Joe. And Senator Cecilia Kachek from the eastern portion of the Mohawk Valley. We're delighted to have you here in Herkimer County and be part of this announcement. I don't need to remind anyone in this room that we have undergone in this region almost 3 consecutive weeks of flooding or threats of flooding, and the damage has been extensive. You know, I have personally toured the area and have seen firsthand the devastation that this flood has had on our public infrastructure, on homes, businesses, and our communities and our neighborhoods. You know, every natural disaster is unique, but the helplessness, that feeling of helplessness on the part of those who have suffered this devastation in the wake of a disaster, that's always the same. And when lives are turned upside down, individuals want reassurance that help is on the way and that better days are ahead. Today, because of the governor's announcement, is one of those better days. And on behalf of my colleagues in the Senate, I want to say that we are pleased to join with Governor Cuomo to pledge the state's continued support to rebuild our streets, to rebuild our homes, our businesses, our farms, and our communities. You know, the governor has been here for us, working with the legislature to help us get the help we need to recover and to rebuild. He repeatedly called on the federal government to support New York State in our time of need. And many of us joined in that effort with partial success. In addition to the state funds that are being announced today, counties affected by flooding will also receive the federal public assistance aid to help us move forward. And though FEMA could not provide us with all of the resources that we had hoped for, Governor Cuomo acted swiftly to alleviate the financial burdens placed on our residents here in the Mohawk Valley and to find room in our state budget so that no New Yorker would have to bear this burden by themselves and alone. You know, the rebuilding effort will be a long and difficult process, but the determination and the support of the governor, the state legislature, local officials, and the resiliency of the people of the Mohawk Valley, we will get through this together. And as the governor says, better than ever. It seems to me that this is more than simply dollars and cents. It's also about planning for the future. We have all been in flood response mode for far too long in recent years. You know, a comprehensive, proactive approach and strategy needs to be in place so that we can better prepare for natural disasters and, better yet, avoid and prevent them, and to better mobilize relief resources in a rapid fashion. You know, I'm pleased to say that with today's announcement and tomorrow's storm recovery conference that the governor is sponsoring, we are moving forward here in New York State and in the Mohawk Valley. And of course, I want to join the governor in thanking our local emergency responders and our local elected officials for their round-the-clock attention to the safety and well-being of our communities. We could not have gotten through this without you. And again, thank you, Governor Cuomo, for your leadership and your assistance. It is greatly appreciated. And now, I'm pleased to turn the program over to my colleague from the Assembly, Assembly Member Santa Barbara.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Seward. It's good to see you back here, Governor Cuomo, especially for this announcement. It's great news, and I thank you for being here and for coming to, being involved and coming to our aid in our time of need. We also have, I'd also like to recognize my colleagues from the Assembly. Once again, Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi, Assemblyman William McGee, and also joining us is Assemblywoman Claudia Tenney as well. If you can have a round of applause for them. In the last several days, communities across the Mohawk Valley, including Herkimer, have started the recovery and rebuilding process that was required by the massive flooding that occurred just 3 weeks ago. But it's good to know that we were not alone in this struggle. Governor Cuomo, my colleagues from the legislature have stepped up and provided us with the aid that we need to begin rebuilding our homes, our businesses, and our lives. And I've had a chance to tour the areas, especially the area of Fort Plain and Montgomery County, and I've seen firsthand the damage and the families that were affected. And I also thank the first responders, all the local officials. They did a great job being on the ground The Red Cross mobilized within a matter of hours, and everybody did a great job coming together, neighbors helping neighbors. The governor's office, in addition to sending National Guard and DEC personnel, also deployed the Department of Financial Services Mobile Command Center. And this helped out the storm victims in our area to help figure out how they were going to deal with the financial implications of this disaster. And that was very important. It really assisted our residents and gave them a place to go to ask questions and get through the process. Decisive and swift action during this time of crisis is what New York has come to expect from our governor, and that's exactly what we got. And when our community was struggling, Governor was there to fight for us, and he delivered, as you heard here today, on his promises to help us. And in the days and weeks ahead, as we attempt to rebuild our towns, we know that the governor and the legislature will be by our side, and we will not be alone going forward. They will be there to support us in any way that they can so that we can come back stronger and better than ever. The Mohawk Valley has a true friend and a partner in our leader, Governor Cuomo, and I want to thank him personally again. If we can have another round of applause for the announcement today. Now I'm pleased to introduce Oneida County Executive Anthony Picenti.
Thank you, Assemblyman Santa Barbara, and thank you, Governor, for being with us again today. 3 weeks ago, as you know, which seems like for many of the people in this room, for many of the officials, the families, seems like 3 years. It was a devastating time when this community, all of these communities were hit by a devastating flood. Homes were destroyed, businesses, severe damage to our infrastructure. And like everyone else up here, I want to thank the governor for the resources, and most importantly, our first responders throughout this state and throughout these communities. We have the finest men and women who respond in every tragedy, and I want to thank you on behalf of Oneida County and all of those communities. The governor stood by us, as he always does, as he has in his years as our governor. He led the relief effort, and I was going to ask his daughters, because I think I know the answer to this. I don't think he sleeps. I know he doesn't sleep in normal times, and I know he doesn't sleep when there were these devastating floods and emergencies hitting our communities, because at all hours of the day and night, we were receiving, those elected officials that know this, that join me, know that we were receiving calls, texts, emails. What do you need? What can we do? And I also want to thank Howard Glazer, the Director of State Operations, for his continued work in this effort. He issued a disaster declaration, deployed 250 members of the National Guard to help clear debris and repair our roads. He directed the Department of Environmental Conservation to begin immediate work in 23 counties impacted by these heavy rains. His efforts to provide assistance will allow us to rebound quickly from this disaster. He has shown true commitment to the Mohawk Valley, to the entire state, because he understands that boundaries are only lines on a map, and that we are neighbors helping neighbors, communities helping communities. He is continuing to work hard to ensure that that continues during this tragedy and throughout all of our other work that needs to be done. Most importantly, when Washington failed us, the governor stepped up, as he said he would, and always does, to once again deliver results when our communities need it most. So we were dealt a hard blow. But as the governor said, we are optimistic about our future. We will rebound. New Yorkers here in the Mohawk Valley are resilient, all of our communities, and on behalf of Oneida County, the people of Oneida County. And while we were devastated with damages and infrastructure and some of our homes and families, we know that our neighbors here in Herkimer, in the east, and in Montgomery, and to the west in Madison County suffered much greater losses. And to that, our hearts go out to you, and our assistance as well goes out to you. So I want to thank the governor for leading us through this tragedy, continuing to lead this state to much better things each and every day. And Governor, I want to thank you personally for always being there when we need you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Anthony.
It's now my pleasure to introduce my neighbor and my good friend, the mayor of the city of Oneida in Madison County, Max Smith.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Governor Cuomo. You and your team have been there for us in every step of the way through the past month. In these past months and weeks, we've endured some of the worst weather in the history of this region, and certainly the worst weather that I can remember. I've lived in Oneida most of my life and have never seen the kind of devastation that we've had to face. Weeks and weeks of heavy rain and wind that led to floods that uprooted houses, turned people's lives upside down, washed away businesses. Governor Cuomo came to our town and has been with us every day since. The day after he visited, and he called me, I was so disarmed, my goodness. He cared enough to reach out to call me, a small town mayor, because he understood what we were dealing with and he understood the difficulties that we were facing. I was so struck that when he came during his visit, I could tell by the questions that he asked that he understood what it took and what it was going to be like for people in the damaged areas, those that were troubled by this flood event. He understood what it was going to be like for them facing the challenges ahead, and that meant so much to us. Time and time again, he has shown us that in New York State, that he's behind us and that he'd be there with us. He put assets and resources at my disposal that as a small town mayor were invaluable in trying to deal with the devastation that we faced. But you know, disasters like this go much far beyond the water damage to people's property. They can shake communities. I've seen people shaken to their very core and folks start to lose hope. During that time, I was able to turn to the people in my community and say, you know what? The governor said he'd be with us. We're New Yorkers. We pull together. And it gave me great comfort, and I'm sure it gave them great comfort to know that he would be there with us. And so, I want to thank you, Governor, from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of all the people and the citizens in my community that you've come through for us like you said you would. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you very much. Now for the most important part, you know why they really want me here today? To sign the check. That's why. Let's give our first responders another round of applause. Also, it was said, but our mayors were the first line of defense, and they did a great job. Frank, John, Guy, let's give them another round of applause. No. Just don't cash it today. Do me a favor. Let me get to the bank first. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thanks.